Hi everyone, my name is Rachel and welcome. So in today's video I'm going to be speaking about the 1988 to 1998 Bougainville Civil War. And before I get into it, I'm just going to give my usual disclaimer. I know that my research is not at all comprehensive. I know that a lot of stories and sources have been removed, silenced, erased and lost in the archive. This is simply a compilation of information that I could find. So if you think I've missed anything out, or if you have any personal stories you'd like to share, feel free to comment them in the comment section below or DM them to me and I will share it on this platform. And in this case in particular, I'm only interested in perspectives and stories from Bougainvillians themselves. And I'm sure you'll understand why as the video goes on. The Bougainville Civil War was a war fought between the Bougainville Interim Government, or more generally the Bougainville Revolutionary Army, the BRA, against Papua New Guinea, though more specifically the Papua New Guinea Defence Force as well as the Buka Liberation Front. And Papua New Guinea Defence Forces was supported by Indonesia and Australia, while the BRA was supported by the Solomon Islands and apparently Fiji. I'm just going to give a bit of geographic and historical context for those of you who don't really know much about Bougainville. Geographically, Bougainville is a sub-region of Melanesia, which if you don't know is part of Oceania, and it's located north of Australia and New Zealand and east of Papua New Guinea, which if you don't know is east of Indonesia. Bougainville was originally settled by Melanesians, though roughly 3,000 years ago there was an influx of Austronesians onto the island. Bougainville was colonised by Germany in 1886 and became part of German New Guinea, though following the outbreak of World War I in December of 1914, Bougainville was occupied by Australia. Following the 1919 Treaty of Versailles, where German colonies were split up and distributed to Western powers, Bougainville became an Australian colony. Then World War II came and Bougainville was occupied by Japanese forces who left on the 2nd of September 1945. And though they physically left the island in 1945, a lot of their arms and ammunition remained. And following World War II, the territory of New Guinea, which included Bougainville, was reverted to an Australian colony. In 1949, Australia merged its territory of Papua and its territory of New Guinea to form the territory of Papua New Guinea. On the 16th of September 1975, it was mandated that Australia no longer be sovereign over the territory of Papua New Guinea. And that happened. Papua New Guinea gained its independence from Australia, making Bougainville part of Papua New Guinea. On the 11th of September 1975, so just 5 days before Papua New Guinea got its independence, Bougainville actually unilaterally declared themselves the independent state of North Solomons, though that was not internationally recognised. As a result of their failed attempt at self-determination, Papua New Guinea increased Bougainville's self-governance rights in exchange for Bougainville being politically absorbed into Papua New Guinea. Prior to Papua New Guinea's independence, the Australian colonial government had actually approved construction in Panguna, Bougainville, for the Panguna mine. And following Papua New Guinea's independence, they had renegotiated the terms of the Bougainville Copper Agreement, which was the agreement that the Australian colonial government had made with the company Cosig Rio Tinto, and they renegotiated the terms, though still went forward with the construction of the Panguna mine. And there have been many attempts to mine in Bougainville, as Bougainville is an island which is rich in copper as well as silver and gold. In 1969, Bougainville Copper Limited, which is a subsidiary of the Cosig Rio Tinto company that I mentioned earlier, was established to mine copper as well as gold and silver in Bougainville. The Panguna mine, an open pit mine located in the town of Panguna, was established and opened in 1972, where they began mining. And BCL, so Bougainville Copper Limited, was actually supported by the Papua New Guinea government, who was a 20% shareholder in the subsidiary. Bougainvillians, on the other hand, received 0.5 to 1.25% of all profits, and they disproportionately suffered. As we know, mining has extremely dire effects on the environment as well as local populations, ranging from land pollution to air pollution, water degradation, loss of biodiversity, and subsequent sickness and ailments. Namely, the Panguna mine was responsible for poisoning the entire Jabba River, of which all aquatic life was completely destroyed. It was also responsible for causing birth defects as well as the extinction of the flying fox bat on the island. As well as environmental degradation, the construction of the mine had also established systems of racial segregation. The term whiteskins was used to refer to the Australian workers who were employed by BCL, who then migrated to Bougainville, and they existed at the top of the hierarchy. Beneath them were the redskins, people employed from Papua New Guinea, and beneath them were the black Bougainvilleans. As I was doing my research, I came across a lot of testimonies from white BCL employees who spoke about how before the Civil War it was the good old days, and they were reminiscing. But I'm just thinking, like, it was the good days for who? Like, who benefited from the Panguna mine? Because from the looks of it, it was not the Bougainvilleans themselves. By August of 1988, tensions over the Panguna mine had led to local conflict. The Papuan government deployed the Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary Mobile Squads, as well as elements of the Papua New Guinea Defence Force, to Bougainville. The conflicts expanded, and there were many reports of violence throughout the island, and by 1989 the Panguna mine had closed, and many of the non-Bougainvilleans who worked in the Panguna mine had migrated back to their country. However, for the Bougainvilleans who remained on the island, who were indigenous to the island, that simply wasn't enough. The Papua New Guinean government had completely disregarded their living standards as well as their indigenous epistemologies. They had harmed many of their loved ones and exploited them economically. They had just completely ignored the rights given to them in 1975. It was reported that many Bougainvillean villages had been burnt down by Papua New Guinea forces.
It's totally unwarranted what Papua New Guinea security forces or defense forces have done to my house and the whole entire village on Pokok Island. And I just cannot believe why in the world, and why should the Papua New Guinea discipline forces, so-called discipline forces, have done this thing when the war is between BRA and the Papua New Guinea Defense Force.
And a blockade was imposed on the island, and this blockade was imposed by helicopters and patrol boats provided by the Australian government. Australia also provided some arms and ammunition, training, and some specialist advisors to Papua New Guinea. Though apparently the Australian government didn't intend for the helicopters to be used for combat, arms and ammunition were fitted in by Papua New Guinea forces, and they were used to fight against the BRA. Though if Australia was so against using them for combat, I don't really understand why they would be provided. Like, you can't try and make a blockade ethical, or I don't think so. And this blockade prevented medicine and resources from entering Bougainville, which in itself is quite an isolated and small island. And this meant that though the BRA were technically supported by the Solomon Islands, they couldn't actually receive the arms and ammunition as well as the food, the resources, all of the aid that was given because of the blockade. And this blockade lasted from 1988 to 1994, so 6 whole years, though in some parts of Bougainville it's reported that the blockade lasted until 1997. And I think here's a good place for me to speak about the manpower of both parties. Papua New Guinea had roughly 800 soldiers and 150 police officers, of whom were fully trained and equipped in guns as well as other ammunition. As well as this, they had 4 helicopters and 4 patrol boats. BRA, on the other hand, had roughly 2,000 resistance fighters who used the ammunition that was left on the island by Japanese forces, as well as the little resources and ammunition they did receive from the Solomon Islands, though, as I said, was inevitably restricted due to the blockade.
It would only have been fair if we were using mortars too, but this against shotgun is unacceptable. Even Papua New Guinea Defense Force knew that we didn't have strong weapons. They shouldn't use this weapon. So it was an unfair fight.
And the blockade wasn't the only form of violence that occurred.
all man mo pesi ko anda no bush now sa tiata area mi ba ko rukotim because no one ora mi sa ko to patro bot the banana bot o sa shoot na bat na spray mo kita now sa stumo man o civilian no or nampis and I said tiata area nampis or kita and BRA stop.
There were many reports of gendered and sexual violence that was inflicted on the female population throughout the duration of the Civil War. It's also speculated that Papua New Guinea used Agent Orange, a herbicide and defoliant chemical which not only has damaging environmental effects but also has life-threatening issues for those who were directly exposed as well as their children.
And we stopped and we looked at this hillside, and every leaf was brown in color. There was no actual living thing still there. There was only the destruction, the death of all the foliage was quite evident. And his remark to me was that they had used the defoliant Agent Orange to defoliate.
People typically associate its use with the 1961 to 1971 Vietnam War, though it has been used as a weapon of biological warfare throughout the globe. The leader of the BRA, Francis Onar, set up the Bougainville interim government with himself as president and Joseph Kabiri as vice president. However, the Bougainville interim government, the BIG, didn't have that much power over the actual conflict, and there was a lot of ethnic and tribal conflicts that occurred within the BRA that they didn't have much power over. And thereafter, the Bougainville Revolutionary Army began to split along tribal and ethnic lines. So, as well as the blockade, the BRA had to navigate the internal conflict, which, as you can imagine, just could have been very stressful and a lot. Between 1991 and 1992, the Papua New Guinea Defence Force took control of the north and southwest of Bougainville. After the 1992 election, where Pius Wingti was elected, Papua New Guinea was much harder towards Bougainville.
BRA has not gone to Papua New Guinea and fight to steal land and resources. BRA has not gone to Australia to fight and steal whatever resources that is in Australia. No. BRA is here to defend the rights, self-determination of the people of Bougainville and land and environment. So whatever label that they have labeled BRA in the media of Australia and Papua New Guinea, this is all garbage. You have seen for yourself what Papua New Guinea armed forces has done to the people of Bougainville, the innocent people. They have burned down our houses. They stole our property. They have killed our dear ones. Thousands have died.
Papua New Guinea at one point even raided the Solomon Islands for supporting the BRA. They were just a bit ruthless. The Papuan Foreign Minister, Julius Chan, attempted to get a peacekeeping force from neighbouring countries, though that idea was initially crushed by Wingti. The Papuan Prime Minister Wingti then decided to retake the Panguna mine, which at that point was under the care and under the authority of the Bougainville Revolutionary Army. In 1994, President Wingti was replaced by Julius Chan, and Chan made clear that he wanted the war to end peacefully. And so a conference in Arawa, Bougainville, was organised in October of 1994. The BIG leaders didn't attend the conference as they thought their safety would be compromised, and the PNG government did try to negotiate with moderate BRA members, though that largely fell through and was unsuccessful. And even though Chan began to get frustrated at the lack of progress and the lack of responsiveness from the BRA and the BIG, they still felt extremely vulnerable, and rightly so. After a round of negotiations that took place in Australia in 1996, a group of BRA and BIG members were attacked upon arriving back to Bougainville, and this attack was by Papua New Guinea Defence Force soldiers. President Julius Chan then decided to abandon the prospects of a peaceful resolution, and on the 21st of March 1996 resorted to military action to resolve the issue. After the Australian and New Zealand government refused to continue supporting Papua New Guinea Defence Forces, Papua New Guinea then sought help and sought aid from a UK-based private military company named Sandline International. And here starts the Sandline affair. In short, Sandline International was a private military company which was based in London and was established in the early 1990s. Tim Spicer, the founder of Sandline International, met with the Deputy Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Chris Javieta, to discuss the benefits of using Sandline International. These benefits included the neutralisation of the BRA, the end of the Bougainville Civil War, and most importantly, I think, the reopening of the Panguna mine. It was agreed on the 8th of January 1997 between Chan and Spicer that Sandline mercenaries would provide 44 Special Force personnel, mostly from Britain, South Africa and Australia, for $36 million. Half was to be paid up front and the other half was to be paid after the mission. And Papua New Guinea culminated this money through the tightening of healthcare and education budgets as well as other sectors. The news of Papua New Guinea's government's intentions to hire mercenaries was leaked to the Australian press. The BRA resisted the Sandline affair by adopting the Look North policy, which was a plan to ask communist countries in the north for support in exchange for mining opportunities for a period of time. Papua New Guinea retreated, and with the new election of the Papuan Prime Minister Bill Skates in July of 1997, who opposed the military solution, there were attempts of demilitarizing the island. A letter dated on the 30th of March 1998 from the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Papua New Guinea to the President of the Security Council states, "I have the honour to inform you of recent developments through which the parties to the 9-year-old conflict in Bougainville, Papua New Guinea have met and agreed to a secure and lasting peace by peaceful means. They include a truce signed in Burnham, New Zealand on the 10th of October 1997, the Burnham Truce, and the Agreement on Peace, Security and Development of Bougainville, signed at Lincoln, New Zealand on the 23rd of January 1996, the Lincoln Agreement, which, among other things, extends the truce until a permanent and irrevocable ceasefire takes place at 2400 hours on 30th of April 1998. The Lincoln Agreement, which prays for the Almighty's forgiveness, guidance and blessing for future endeavours, explains in detail the logistics of the ceasefire, with the phased withdrawal of Papua New Guinea Defence Forces from Bougainville and the promotion of reconciliation between Bougainvilleans and other groups, individuals and organisations in Papua New Guinea. By the end of the BRA uprising, roughly 300 Papua New Guinea Defence Force soldiers were killed and many more wounded. Conversely, almost 20,000 Bougainvilleans were killed, with BRA fighters being included in that figure, which was roughly 10% of the total population. Furthermore, over 60,000 Bougainvilleans were and continue to be displaced as a result of the war. As with all events that involve genocide, there are insurmountable levels of emotional and psychological effects and damage that aren't even satisfied, let alone addressed by a ceasefire. And the environmental damage caused by the war, from water and land pollution to wildlife displacement, certainly weren't addressed. A peace agreement between Papua New Guinea and the BRA was reached in 2001, which led to the creation of the autonomous Bougainville government. And since the BRA president, Francis Ona, initially refused to entertain the idea, Joseph Kabui replaced him as president following his death in 2005. Michael Somare, a former Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, wrote an affidavit in 2001 revealing Rio Tinto's role in the Bougainville Civil War. As I mentioned in the beginning, Bougainville Copper Limited was a subsidiary of Kosink Rio Tinto, and that meant that Kosink Rio Tinto essentially owned the Panguna mine. Somare's affidavit was sworn under oath and was provided to the court. He was the Prime Minister whilst tensions were rising, specifically between 1975 and 1980 and 1982 and 1985. He saw and actively participated in conversations and agreements with Kosink Rio Tinto. Michael Somare was the leader of the opposition in 2001, and in that year he wrote the affidavit, and though it has never been made public, it essentially argues that Kosink Rio Tinto played an active and central role in the military operations of the Bougainville Civil War as well as the blockade. It states, because of Rio Tinto's financial influence in Papua New Guinea, the company controlled the government. The government of Papua New Guinea followed Rio Tinto's instructions and carried out its requests. BCL was directly involved in the military operations on Bougainville, and it played an active role. BCL supplied helicopters which were used as gunships, the pilots, troop transportation, fuel and troop barracks. It is my opinion that absent Rio Tinto mining activity on Bougainville, or its insistence that the Panguna mine be reopened, the government would not have engaged in hostilities or taken military action on the island. Though, as I said, this affidavit was released in 2001, which was roughly 3 years following the end of the Bougainville Civil War. And throughout the 10-year-long Bougainville Civil War, many Bougainvillians knew this. They saw the BCL branding on the helicopters, on the trucks, and on the different forms of ammunition, though it's just a real shame that their voices weren't listened to.
Rio Tinto. PNG government, is only a small government, But when you have the money, you see you can do anything. It was on Rio's advice that devilish blockade also was in place.
I think from the events of the Bougainville Civil War, we can definitely see the economic nature of imperialism and how it completely disregards environmental factors. In this discussion of the climate crisis and environmental racism, I feel like so much can be extracted from the Bougainville Civil War, and this is definitely an ongoing thing. Even though the war ended or officially ended in 1998, as I said, the effects are still ongoing and people are still facing the consequences of environmental racism, of water pollution.
The poisoned river.
So every daytime, when I bagarapim, no, this la mining I bagarapim muara. No, when I atu inogatwara, so all the time a little manifestakam was loem, so I got when I now all big man. We don't know by money open. So all big man, that's all I think also any big money only by money open because they only say kissing benefit loem. So me play lol as peles lawyer me plan no likes there.
The climate crisis and environmental racism and anti-blackness and colonialism and imperialism and capitalism, a lot is going on. I hope you've learned something if you didn't know anything, and if you knew a little bit, I hope you now know a little bit more, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
The fact that the BRA has fought on against all odds, despite the blockade, despite whatever that the PNG government has imposed on us, is a powerful indication that BRA is people's army.